You picked the seat yourself. You looked at a map of a building you had never been inside. You found the colored block that was the most money you were willing to spend on one evening, and you clicked it. The number was right there. You doubled it in your head because there were two of you going, and you decided that yes, that was survivable. Then the page changed, and the total at the bottom of the new page was not the number you had doubled. It was the number you had doubled, plus something else. And the something else had not appeared anywhere on the screen where you made your decision. It had a name, though. It always has a name. Service fee, order processing, facility charge, delivery on a thing that arrives as a barcode on your phone. You paid it because at that point you had already told your friend you got the tickets, and because there was no other page to go to. And then you forgot about it the way everybody forgets about it until the next time. In April, a federal jury in Manhattan finished with the company that puts that line on your screen. The subject was the company that charges it, and what that company had been doing to the price you pay. The line itself was never on trial. I want to start with the line anyway, because the line is stranger than the lawsuit, and almost nobody stops to look at it. The fee on a concert ticket has no fixed, published definition. And that is odder than it sounds. A sales tax has a definition. It is a percentage set by a legislature, published, identical for everyone buying the same thing in the same place. You can look it up before you buy. A shipping charge has a definition too, a rough one, in the sense that something physically moves from a warehouse to your door and the cost of that movement is at least connected to reality. The fee on a concert ticket is not like either of those. It is not published in advance. There is no fixed percentage. The amount is not a public constant, and it moves between events and between seats. A private company calculates it according to terms agreed with somebody who is not you, and the first moment you are permitted to see it is the moment after you have emotionally committed to the purchase. Somebody decided which screen that number appears on, and the name on it comes from a system that no longer exists. When tickets were sold at a window, the price on the card was the price you paid because you had done all the work, the queuing, the traveling, the standing about in the cold. Then came the telephone, and with it, something genuinely new. A company that would do the queuing for you. Staff, phone lines, printers, envelopes, stamps, a room full of people being paid to answer calls. That was a real service. It cost real money to provide, and the charge for it had an honest name. Convenience. Now look at what you did last time. You did the queuing yourself, on your own device, on your own connection, refreshing a page you had paid your internet provider to reach. Nothing was posted to you. No ticket was printed. Not one person answered a call. Nearly every physical thing that charge was invented to pay for has been taken out of the process, and much of what is left has been quietly moved onto you. The charge stayed, and in many cases, it grew. Plenty of prices survived the disappearance of their original justification, so that is not a scandal by itself. But when somebody tells you the line is a service fee, the useful response is to ask which service and to notice how long it takes to get a straight answer. So why can't you just buy the ticket somewhere else? This is the question that most people never quite ask out loud, and it is the actual foundation of the whole story. Because in almost any other part of your life, this problem solves itself. If a shop adds a surprise charge at the till, you go to a different shop. That is the entire mechanism by which prices stay honest. It requires a different shop to exist. Now think about what you were actually buying. You were not buying a ticket. You were buying a specific seat in a specific building on a specific night to see a specific person who is only in your city once. There is no substitute. A seat at a different venue is not the same product. Next Tuesday is not the same product. The piece that does the real work is this. You did not choose the ticketing company. You have never once chosen a ticketing company in your life. The building chose it. The venue signed a contract, often a long one, often an exclusive one, and from that moment, every human being who wants to sit inside that building for any event at all goes through the same checkout with the same line on it, whether they have heard of the company or not, which makes it something other than a price. A toll, more precisely, the amount charged for passing through the only door there is. A price is what you get when two parties who can both walk away agree on a number. Nobody in that transaction could walk away. You could not walk away because the seat exists in exactly one place, and the venue, having signed, could not walk away either. Which raises the question underneath all of this. If the ticketing company is not competing for you, who is it competing for? Think about what a ticketing business actually has to win. It does not need to persuade a single member of the public of anything. You will never compare two ticketing platforms the way you compare two airlines, because you will never be offered the choice. The only decision that determines whether that company handles a season of transactions or none at all is made by the people who run the buildings, and it is made once in a room, years before you go to a show. That is the entire market, not the millions of people who buy tickets, the comparatively small number of people who decide what happens at the door. And once you see that, the design of your checkout page stops being mysterious and starts being obvious. Every feature of that experience, in which screen the number appears on, how it is labeled, whether the full price is shown at the start, is not aimed at you. You are not being persuaded. You have already arrived, already chosen the seat, already told somebody you are going. The people being persuaded signed years ago, and what they were being persuaded about was money. So the fee is not really a price you agreed to. It is a charge sitting on top of an arrangement made without you. And the case the government brought is about that arrangement, not about the number on your receipt. That is the shape of the business, and it is a perfectly rational shape. I'm not describing a conspiracy, I'm describing an incentive. If your customer is the building and your revenue comes from the person who has no vote, then a well-run company in that position does exactly what this one did, which is precisely why the question stopped being a business question and became a legal one. That structure, and exclusive contracts between a ticketing company and the buildings, is not something I am inferring. It is the center of the case that the United States government brought. In May of 2024, the United States and the District of Columbia, together with a coalition of states that would eventually number 40, sued Nation Entertainment and its ticketing business, Ticketmaster, in the Southern District of New York. The fuse for that had been lit about 18 months earlier, and it is worth understanding why that particular fuse, and not one of the 100 before it. Concert fees had been a running complaint for decades. Nothing happened. Then, in 2022, the sale for the Taylor Swift Stadium tour arrived, and the system did not degrade gracefully. It fell over publicly for hours, in front of an audience that was very large, very online, and very good at documenting an experience in real time. People sat in digital queues for hours. Some watched a counter tell them how many thousand were ahead of them, waited it out, and were then told there was nothing left. What made that different from every previous complaint was not the anger. It was the witnesses. A ticketing failure is normally invisible because the people it happens to are scattered and have no way to compare notes. This one happened to millions of people simultaneously, all of whom were already in the same conversation, and it turned a private irritation into a documented public event with an enormous constituency behind it. Politicians noticed in the way politicians notice things that already have a crowd attached. But the complaint the government eventually filed was not about a website falling over. The outage is why anyone was looking. What they found when they looked was structure: the contracts, the buildings, the doorway. Attorney General Merrick Garland, announcing the case, said 6 words that tell you exactly what was being asked for. It is time to break it up. Live Nation asked the court to throw the case out, which is standard. In March of 2025, Judge Arun Subramanian declined, and that ruling is a bigger moment than it sounds because a motion to dismiss is where a large share of ambitious antitrust cases quietly die. Surviving it meant the case was heading for a jury. The case went to trial in March of this year, and on the 15th of April, the jury came back. What the jury was shown matters as much as what they decided, and one piece of it has stayed with me. Among the evidence cited at trial were internal emails from inside Ticketmaster. In them, employees discussed professional resellers, the operations that buy in bulk and list the same seats back at a markup, and described the company's approach to their misconduct. The phrase used in writing by people who worked there was that they would turn a blind eye as a matter of policy. In another, a broker who had already been flagged for violations on a large scale was described as not slowing down. I want to be precise about why that phrasing lands differently from the usual corporate embarrassment. A marketplace having trouble with resellers is unremarkable. Every marketplace has trouble with resellers. The weight is carried by 4 words, as a matter of policy, not an oversight, not a backlog, not a team that was under-resourced and losing. a described approach. Those emails are the difference between a company that could not stop something and a company whose own staff described in writing what they had decided not to look at. On the 15th of April this year, the jury found Live Nation liable on the antitrust claims the states had brought. Two findings, and both matter. The first, in the jury's words rather than mine, that the company had illegally monopolized the live events business. The second, that it had overcharged consumers. That second one deserves care, because it is the one people will misremember by tomorrow. The jury did not publish a breakdown of your ticket. They did not rule on where each dollar of that fee went, or who received which slice of it, or how much of it reached the artist. That was not the question in front of them. What they found is that the operation was an illegal monopoly, and that consumers paid more because of it. So, when the word monopoly turns up from here on, understand where it is coming from. Not from me reaching for a strong word, but from members of the public who sat through the evidence and reached a conclusion. Now, the number. A month before the verdict, in early March, a preliminary agreement was reached with the Justice Department, and buried in it is the most revealing figure in the entire case. That agreement caps fees at 15% of the face value of the ticket. Nobody negotiates a limit on a thing that already had a limit. And put a number on what that ceiling would actually permit, because 15% sounds modest until you hold it against a real evening. Take a seat with a face value of $100. 15% of face is $15, so the most that agreement would allow on that ticket is $15 per ticket. Two of you going, and the ceiling alone is $30. That is the generous version. That is the version a government negotiated for, wrote down, and treated as a win. And under the arrangement this case is about, whatever you paid on the tickets already sitting in your email had no ceiling over it at all. Whether your number was higher is a separate question. What is certain is that no limit existed above which the answer would have been no. The single most informative fact in a 2-year federal antitrust case is not the verdict. It is that in 2026, in the American live entertainment market, it was considered a meaningful concession, worth extracting, worth writing down, worth signing, that the charge added to your ticket would from now on stop somewhere, which tells you, with no interpretation required from me, what the situation was on every ticket you have ever bought before that sentence existed. The same preliminary agreement includes two other things. The company agreed to divest 13 exclusive amphitheater booking contracts, and it agreed to open parts of its platform to competitors. Notice that both of those are aimed at the structure, the buildings, and the doorway, rather than at the price. Whoever drafted those terms was aiming at the arrangement, not at the number on your receipt. There is also a figure in that agreement that you are going to see quoted wrongly, and I would rather you hear it correctly from me first. It establishes a fund of $280 million. That money is not a refund, and it is not coming to you. Nor is it compensation for anyone who ever paid a service fee. The fund is designated for the participating states as part of their agreement with the Department of Justice. If you see somebody online telling you that ticket buyers are getting $280 million back, they have read a headline and not a document. No consumer payout has been announced. And the most remarkable thing in this entire case is not in the verdict at all. After a federal lawsuit joined by 40 states, after a trial, after a jury verdict of illegal monopolization and overcharging, after an agreement specific enough to name 13 individual contracts, there is still no audited public breakdown of what the fee on your ticket is composed of. How much of that line is the platforms? How much is the buildings? How much belongs to the promoter, whether any of it reaches the person whose name got you to open the page in the first place? That split is not a public document. I have looked. If somebody hands you a confident pie chart of that fee, ask them where they got it. Because the honest answer available to all of us right now is that the composition of the most paid, least explained charge in live music is simply not disclosed. Notice what that means. The problem was never that the answer is unflattering. The problem is that there still isn't one. So here's the anatomy laid out. It is a charge with no fixed definition, revealed after the decision instead of before it, set by a company you did not select, on a seat that exists in only one building, under a contract you were never a party to, with a composition nobody publishes. Every single one of those is a design choice, and none of them is illegal on its own. That is why it took a federal case, 40 states, and 2 years to get any of it in front of a jury at all. The individual pieces are ordinary, and only the shape they make together is not. So what happens now? This is where the story stops, and it stops without an ending. The verdict established liability. It did not establish the punishment. Punishment belongs to a separate stage, called the remedy phase, which sits open today in front of Judge Subramanian. The states have asked for two things: money damages and a structural remedy. Which of those the judge grants decides whether this outcome changes the industry or merely bills it. A money remedy is a number. Live Nation pays it, books it, and carries on selling tickets through the same doors on the same terms next season. If the profit comes from the shape of the business, a fine is just the cost of staying that shape. One expensive year than ordinary ones. That is not a criticism of fines. It is arithmetic. A structural remedy does not ask for money at all. It asks the company to stop being the thing it is, to sell the ticketing arm off, to give up the exclusive contracts with the buildings, to stop standing on more than one side of the same evening. You cannot budget for that because what it takes is not cash but the arrangement itself, the thing that made the fee possible in the first place. Structural remedies also tend to be slow and heavily contested. They get appealed, and what finally happens is often smaller than what was asked for. Anyone telling you today that Ticketmaster is definitely being sold off is guessing. So is anyone telling you it definitely is not? And the Justice Department's original petition back in 2024 asked for the most structural remedy there is. That Ticketmaster be sold off. That has not been decided. A judge is going to decide it. And the honest position today is that nobody watching this, including me, knows whether the company that has been the door to a very large share of the major venues in the country is going to be broken apart or simply told to behave. What I do know is what changed on the 15th of April, and it is smaller than a breakup and bigger than a fine. For as long as any of us have been buying tickets on a screen, that line was a private matter between a company and a building. The arrangement behind it has now been through a federal trial. The next time that number appears on the screen, after you have already chosen your seat, you will not be able to unsee what it is. Not a tax, not a shipping cost, not a fee whose composition anybody has ever published. A charge that exists because there was nowhere else to click. One question before you go, and I would genuinely like the answer. What is the largest charge you have ever paid where there was no second shop to walk into? Not the most expensive thing you have ever bought. The one where the alternative simply did not exist. Leave it below. I read all of them. And if taking a single line off a receipt and following it all the way down is the sort of thing you want more of, the like button does more work than it looks like it does, and hitting subscribe is how the next one reaches you.